Hello and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing essentially the quarterly ritual of talking about the Activision Blizzard earnings report. Now of course we actually do know quite a bit about the numbers already because right after Warlords of Draenor came out they said we just hit 10 million and at this earnings call they actually said we are above 10 million. They didn't actually give us a specific number, but I'm going to assume that it's not that much above 10 million because if it was 11 or 12 or something, they quite obviously would have told us. So on the World of Warcraft front, they said that. I will talk a little bit more about that in a minute though. In terms of Diablo stuff, again, no real news, but they did say that it was a very, very strong seller, and the Reaper of Souls, of course, performed well, which is really what we all knew. It was a very well-received thing. They talked a little bit about Legacy of the Void being a thing, not much in terms of numbers, and in terms of Heroes of the Storm, there's 9 million people applied for the beta, and apparently they've been seeing decently strong participation in sales and various things like that, which I suppose does make sense because a lot of people were kind of just very raring to go with Heroes, and now that Founders Pack is a thing, despite the fact that I don't think it represents that much value, I'm just going to assume that it will drive a lot of sales. Now, Hearthstone is probably Blizzard's biggest franchise, really, at the minute. It's actually got 25 million players now. They're going to be bringing it to mobile devices, well, to actual, phones, rather than just tablets later on in the year, and they do have upcoming content and, various things like that. So, essentially, it's what you would expect, but let's talk about World of Warcraft because that is what you're here for. At least I would assume so. So, in WoW, they just said that they are above 10 million, no specific numbers, and that is consistent with what we heard back just after Warlords of Draenor came out. That's kind of interesting because they released those numbers, the 10 million, or the original 10 million, before the game had came out in Asia. So, I'm assuming that what they call the fluidity of the Asian market is why they didn't give us any specific numbers above the 10 million, so it's probably just hovering in and around there. Now, they did say, of course, that they do expect subscription numbers to fall as time goes on, as is usually the case from expansion to expansion. Well, that's been true for Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria. I mean, Burning Crusade and Wrath were, I think, that's still in, WoW's main growth phase. I mean, TBC started off with 8 million, ended with 11.5. Well, 11. Wrath started off with 11.5 and ended with 12, so there was solid growth across them, but of course Cataclysm started at 12, ended at 9, then Mist started at 10 million and ended at 7.4 million, whereas now Warlords is starting off at 10 million. So really the question is, will the game stay stagnant in terms of the subscriber numbers? Will it rise? Probably not. Or will it fall? Most likely. And the really important question is how much will it fall, and I think that's what is really up to Blizzard. If they mess up the content release schedule, then they're going to run into a lot of problems, and it's actually worth talking about a little bit of Mists of Pandaria here, because as much as many people do have problems with Mists, the numbers show that Blizzard actually did a good job in terms of maintaining player retention. So in March 2013 we had 8.3 million subscribers, and in March 14 there was 7.6 million. But June 2013, 7.7 million, and that actually lasted until March 14 with 7.6 million. So there was essentially a year-long period there where they were able to maintain very, very consistent numbers. And that's the time when patch 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4 happened. Now, if we look at 5.2, I think that was a patch that did have a lot of content. There's a lot going on the island. I thought that stuff was pretty cool, and they released one of the best raids they've made, in my opinion. I thought Throne of Thunder was a lot of fun, especially Lei Shen, fantastic boss. That was all very well done. Then patch 5.3, despite its problems, I think it did the job. It was, of course, coming off the back of 5.2 already being very good, and you've got to remember it was only a few months after 5.2 that 5.3 actually appeared. And then I think what does surprise me the most is just how long things were stagnant after Siege of Orgrimmar and the Time of the Sile and all that stuff. But I think the key point to take away is that if you look at that content and you look at the numbers, we can definitely see that that was enough to keep a core audience that's very large decently entertained with the game, especially in a period of time where there's a lot of naysaying about WoW, a lot of naysaying about Mists of Pandaria, so it is kind of surprising they were able to keep the numbers that solid. That's essentially what they need to do with Warlords of Draenor. They just need to focus on having really, really good patches to maintain the subscription numbers. Now, if you compare, say, 5.1 to 6.1, right now, 6.1 doesn't shape up that favorably because we still need to wait and see what's in the Iron Docks. As time goes on, I'm getting progressively more worried that the Iron Docks quest content may not be a thing, and if it's not a thing, then honestly, the only core content that patch 6.1 is going to have is a bunch of daily quests. Well, you know, the pool of 5 that we know about. A lot of the other things in that patch, like the heirloom system, and perhaps, you know, the other things like the selfie camera and all that stuff, they're kind of inconsequential things that don't really have extremely broad appeal. What does have a lot of appeal is quest content, things to do. So 6.1 definitely needs to be a lot more beefed up than it currently is in regards to just actual stuff you can go and do in your character. And also, like, if, say, in your garrison one day, the profession trader NPC appears, well, guess what? You hand in 50 sumptuous fur, and that's your content for the day. How fun. So they need to watch out there with patch 6.1, honestly. I'm a little bit worried. Patch 6.2, again, it needs to be something really good. I'm assuming it's going to be Tanaan Jungle. It really does depend, though, of course. This is going back to the old chestnut of, will Warlords of Draenor be 2 or 3 raid tiers? We just don't know. Blizzard have said it's either way, really. It does sound a little bit like it might be a 2-tier expansion, honestly. If so, you know, a little bit disappointed about that, because I think there is a lot more that they could do with Draenor. But yes, patch 5.2, if it is the final one, will be in Tanaan, killing Grommash Hellscream. And you know what? They have had so long to think about Tanaan that thing, I think, should be pretty good in terms of the main content. Do remember, by the way, that Tanaan Jungle was originally planned for patch 6.0. I mean, hell, it feels like by the end of all of these patches, we'll have the Warlords of Draenor that they originally wanted to have for patch 6.0. But anyway, Tanaan should be pretty good. It will have had a lot of sort of time to be baked in the oven, if you get my drift. So that'll be nice anyway. But again, this is all conjecture. We'll just have to see. What we do know is that if Blizzard are able to make good patches, people will stay. That's what we have been shown by Mists of Pandaria. Now, in terms of other WoW-related things from this earnings call, they said that, of course, as you would expect, the character boost was very successful, both in terms of revenue and how it allowed people to get back into the game a bit easier. I suppose all that stuff makes sense. And they did also mention that they are expecting Asia to have a larger decline in subscription numbers. That does make a lot of sense, though, because, as they said, Asian subscriber numbers are generally a little bit more fluid. I'd be interested in hearing what counts as a single subscriber from Asia, because that game is, I believe, on a kind of like you pay for the amount of time, I mean, like actual in-game time that you play. Unless anything has changed in the last while, I think that's definitely my current understanding of it. So it'll be interesting to see what counts as a subscriber. I'm assuming it's just an account logging in once a month that's, you know, being paid for. But anyway, that business model does definitely lend itself to being a lot more fluid, because you're literally paying for every hour that you play. It's not like over here where you pay your $8.99 or $15, whatever, and there you go, the game's yours for a month, do whatever the hell you want. With the Asian business model, you know, you might play it for a week, and if you don't feel like there's absolutely something you need to do, then you can just easily stop, and that means you're spending less money on the game. I think that does encourage a bit more of a sort of fickle way of playing the game, though that does make sense for the Asian market. That's why they don't have a traditional subscription model over there. It's all about, you know, pay per hour, free to play, and all those various things. So that's really it for what I want to say about this earnings call. Not a great deal of crazy interesting stuff, but I think it's generally always fun to look back at past expansions, have a little bit of a think about why their patches worked or didn't work, and then compare it to the future. Warlords of Draenor has started off well in terms of the numbers. I'm worried that patch 6.1 won't support it that well, and hopefully patch 6.2, because it will most likely be Tanaan, will be good, because damn, they've had quite a long time to work on it. Anyway, that's basically it for me, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.